He watched with his own eyes as his father fell on the steppe and his tribe was brutally taken away. He was ruthlessly driven and severely beaten like a slave. But his tormentors did not know that amidst the vast steppes and howling winds, whispers of his destined conquest of the world could already be heard. The truth will leave you speechless. The story of the 2009 epic masterpiece, By the Will of Genghis Khan, begins exactly from this cruel yet magnificent Siberian wasteland. This multi-million-dollar masterpiece, set against the breathtaking vistas of Lake Baikal and the Verkhoyansk Range, shows us a flesh-and-blood man who didn't just know revenge, but sought the harmony between man and nature. At the beginning of the story, the young Temujin encounters the darkest moment of his life. His father, the great tribal leader, was assassinated by a conspiracy and died of poisoning. Before his death, his father entrusted him with the symbol of power and prophesied.
Zamanı gelince sen de benim gibi olacaksın. Boyumuza hanlık edeceksin.
However, the power vacuum immediately attracted jackals. The traitor Targatai not only seized the power belonging to Temujin's family, but also intended to strangle this boy, who might pose a future threat, in his cradle. Targatai arrogantly pressured Temujin's mother, Hoelun, attempting to take her for himself, and disdainfully declared that Temujin could never become a Khan. Facing absolute ruin, the great mother Hoelun showed astonishing resilience. She did not surrender, but instead led her children to survive through immense hardship. To protect the young Temujin, she endured the pain of cutting off his long hair, because in Mongolian belief, hair carries the memories and strength of the ancestors. She told her son that he must hide his edge under ruthless gazes until the day his wings were fully grown. Just as Temujin was forced to leave his mother and head to his fiancée Borte's home for refuge, destiny allowed him to meet the most important sworn brother of his life, Jamuka. Under a sacred tree, they became Anda, blood brothers, swore to share life and death, and promised before the spirits to support each other like biological brothers from then on. This pure brotherhood became the only glimmer of light in Temujin's gloomy childhood. But peace is always fleeting. Targatai's pursuers, relentless as a lingering disease, quickly tracked down Temujin. During a brutal pursuit, Temujin unfortunately fell into enemy hands while trying to cover his family's escape. He was put in a heavy and humiliating wooden kange, reduced to a slave to be trampled upon by anyone. Targatai's men mocked him in every way, tying him up in the camp like a dog. However, even in the deepest darkness, Temujin's eyes remained as sharp as a lone wolf's. He prayed to the great eternal blue sky, Tengri, listening to the song of the wind in his despair, drawing strength from the earth. Ultimately, under the blessing of the eternal blue sky and his own quick wit, he broke free from his shackles, dove into the freezing river water, and disappeared from everyone's sight like a dead man, completing a true rebirth. But many people overlook a detail here. Temujin's escape was not merely clinging to life, but the beginning of his spiritual covenant with the eternal blue sky. In this movie, the director strongly portrays not a butcher who only knows how to kill, but a vessel chosen by the gods. The eternal blue sky secretly forged his will, allowing him to comprehend the true meaning of survival and rule amidst extreme suffering. Time flew by, and when Temujin reappeared on the steppe, he had grown into a true warrior with a robust physique and blazing eyes. He fulfilled his promise to his mother, not only reclaiming his dignity but also marrying Borte, who had waited for him for many years. His mother was proud of him, firmly believing that he would become the Khan who ruled over all and bestowed upon him a blessing, because they respect your father. To consolidate his power, Temujin took a precious black sable coat to visit his father's former sworn brother, the powerful leader of the Karaites, Wang Khan. Wang Khan gladly accepted this young man and promised to provide him with protection. However, the cruel laws of the steppe once again opened their bloody maw at Temujin. To avenge a generations-old blood feud from many years ago, the Merkits launched a night raid on Temujin's camp. Amidst the sky-filling flames and screams, Borte was violently abducted. He found his old brother Jamuka and united with Wang Khan's army to launch a fierce war of revenge. When Temujin charged into the enemy camp like a god of death, rescuing Borte from despair, his blade was already soaked with the blood of his enemies.
Belgutay!
Temujin! Temujin!
However, this victory did not bring lasting peace. Instead, it sowed the seeds of discord between the brothers. As Temujin's power continued to grow, he began to implement a brand new system that transcended traditional tribal bloodline laws, the Yasa, the Great Yasa. He desired to build a unified army, where one person was responsible for everyone, and everyone was responsible for one person. But this offended the deeply rooted old interests on the steppe. The real catalyst was when Jamuka's younger brother, Taichar, driven by greed for horses, stole the horse herds of Temujin's tribe and was shot dead in the ensuing conflict.
Hırsız var!
The furious Jamuka came with a massive army to demand justice, demanding that Temujin hand over the killer. Facing the Anda, who had once shared life and death with him, Temujin fell into deep agony. But he knew that if the law could yield to family ties, the order he had established would cease to exist. He firmly rejected Jamuka's demand and proclaimed the majesty of the new law.
Sana yeni yasayı söyleyeyim. Hırsızlığın cezası ölümdür.
This decision completely tore apart the brotherhood between Temujin and Jamuka. Jamuka could not accept this cold, great unification ideology. He believed that Temujin's ambition would drown the entire steppe in the blood of brothers. During their first tragic clash in the canyon, Temujin retreated out of reluctance to kill his brother, but the rift could no longer be healed. Temujin completed his transformation through pain, and he was elected as the great Genghis Khan. He swore an oath to the eternal blue sky before the altar.
Ve tüm kalbimle yaşatma gücü ver. Ulu Tengri. Kılıcım ellerime savaşmayı öğretiyor. Kalkanım beni alçaklıktan koruyor. Göklerden yeryüzüne in. Ulu dağlarımıza dokun. Bana işaret ver. Yıldırımlarınla düşmanlarıma ateşli oklar gönder. Halkımı
This is exactly the deepest metaphor hidden by the director. Genghis Khan's rise was a severe labor pain of transition between the old tribal liberalism and the emerging great unification under the rule of law. The shamans on the steppe even came forward to curse Temujin.
Bütün insanları sunakta kurban ettin ama yıldırımla öleceksin. Gök tarafından seçilmişsin, yer tarafından lanetleneceksin. Gök tarafından seçilmişsin, yer...
The shaman's prophecy was like the sword of Damocles hanging over Temujin's head, filling the entire story with a sense of fated tragedy. As Genghis Khan's power reached its zenith, fear began to spread among the other tribes. The Naimans, the most powerful force on the steppe, decided to unite all those who opposed Temujin to completely eliminate him. And what broke Temujin's heart the most was that the leader of this massive rebel coalition was his once beloved brother, Jamuka. Jamuka sought refuge with Tayan Khan of the Naimans and was elected as the Gurkhan of the steppe. He proudly declared that Mongols are as free as the winds of the steppe and shouted,
Biz kimseye boyun eğmeyiz.
The war drums had sounded. This was not only a struggle for power, but also the ultimate collision of two beliefs. The pride of the Naimans made them blindly confident, even electing Jamuka as the Gurkhan of the steppe, attempting to annihilate Temujin's new forces in one fell swoop. Temujin knew very well that facing a formidable enemy 10 times his size, fighting head-on would yield no chance of victory. To avoid the mass slaughter of the people, he even sent his own younger brother Hasar as a truce envoy in an attempt to make a final effort for peace. In the enemy's main tent, Hasar conveyed his brother's will without being haughty or humble.
Genghis Han sizlerle savaşmak istemiyor. O yüzden şu an karşınızdayım. Ulu Cengiz Han'ın barış elçisi benim.
But the arrogant Naimans not only treated the peace proposal as a joke of weakness,
Anladım. Bizden korkuyor yani. Bizimle savaşmak için aklını yitirmiş olması gerek. Biz yenilmeziz. Abine söyle.
but also brutally executed this envoy of peace. Blood thoroughly ignited Genghis Khan's fury. An ultimate decisive battle determining the fate of the steppe, and even the world was now inevitable. But the true deciding factor of a battle often lies not in the number of troops, but in the wisdom of the commander. Temujin played an earth-shattering, empty city strategy. He ordered his troops to set up a hidden real position in the lower valley, while setting up a decoy position on the other side, using felt to make fake soldiers, and even deliberately letting the commander's flag be seen to confuse the enemy. When the Naiman army, led by Tayan Khan and Jamuka, charged mightily towards the decoy, all that awaited them was an empty camp. Jamuka, leading the charge, suddenly awakened to the truth.
Genghis Han orada değil. Bize tuzak kurmuşlar.
Temujin's main force descended like divine troops from the heavens, tightly encircling the Naimans. Arrows rained down like a swarm of locusts, and the fierce slaughter shattered the tranquility of the steppe. fact, during this highlight moment, the director deliberately slowed down the killing scenes, focusing instead on the tearing apart of human nature. Blood and flesh flew across the battlefield as Mongols of the same origin slaughtered one another. Looking at the corpses littered across the ground and the fall of his former compatriots, Jamuka, who had once supported the war, completely broke down. He desperately waved his weapon amidst the chaotic army, trying to stop this meaningless massacre, screaming hysterically, Facing the unstoppable torrent of history and the iron-blooded law, Jamuka ultimately laid down his weapon, chose to turn away from the battlefield, and left the victory to Temujin. The great Naiman army was reduced to ashes. Temujin walked across the battlefield piled high with corpses. Facing the accusations of the defeated, he was cold and resolute. The noble female relatives of the enemy leader resentfully cursed him as a barbarian who won through treachery, even demanding that he kill them. But Temujin did not swing his butcher's knife. Instead, he calmly declared,
Sense benim karım olacaksın.
This was not merely a conqueror's possession, but rather a cruel method of assimilating foreign tribes and establishing a new order on the steppe. Then, the movie reaches its most heartbreaking moment. The defeated Jamuka was brought before Temujin. Looking at this Anda, with whom he had once shared hardships, Temujin still remembered their old affection, hoping he would become the second in command of his empire to rule the steppe together. But the vitality had faded from Jamuka's eyes. He deeply knew that the steppe could not have two sons, nor could he endure the complete collapse of the old laws. Looking at Temujin, he said bleakly, yet resolutely,
Hayır Genghis Han. Beni öldürmeni istiyorum. Rüzgar taşla ezilemez.
Heaven and earth were moved. Temujin ultimately executed his most beloved brother with tears in his eyes, completely severing his past self as well. At the end of the film, the perspective shifts to a scholar who is writing the secret history of the Mongols. This is exactly where the most profound core of the entire movie lies. The scholar articulates the main theme of the entire film and uncovers the most unknown side of this world conqueror. History has two truths. The first is the history of war and sovereignty. As for the second, it is the history of a person's life. It remains a secret forever. The so-called will of Genghis Khan is not only the great enterprise of conquering the Sea of Stars, but also the mental metamorphosis he was forced to undergo under endless sacrifices. His brother's betrayal and the destiny of the eternal blue sky. He bore the weight of a lonely throne, paved with the blood of his compatriots. Just like the final whispers of the gods, by the will of heaven, he changed the world. But because of this, he was destined to drift alone in an ocean of blood.